talk about Akuma on Wednesdays. They're a big sponsor of our show. So thank you, Akuma, for being a sponsor of the show. And today is also the day we bring in our good friend Bill Varney, surf fish guru. And we're going to be talking a lot about grunion today. We got all kinds of things to talk about. We're going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff that has to do with fishing in the surf. And surf fishing's been very good in between the storms. So you want to pay attention. You want to listen to this show. You want to hit the share button, hit the like button, gang. And we're going to get going here in just a second, letting a few more people jump onto our live show. And then those of you that are listening on Spotify and Apple and Mega, thank you very, very much. I haven't mentioned you guys in a long time. Those of you driving around in your cars, I appreciate it. The downloads of our podcast are absolutely mind-boggling, and I am blown away. And I want to thank each and every one of you that are driving around in your cars and listening to my podcast. Thank you so very, very much. You have no idea how much I appreciate all the love I feel from everybody. And those of you that haven't, as you're driving around in your cars, if you haven't had a chance to watch us, we're live every day on Facebook and on YouTube, and you can go back and watch the show live. When you get back home after listening to it while you're driving around, you can watch the recorded live show on YouTube or on Facebook at Your Saltwater Guide. And that's pretty much a cool way to check it out. And then you get to see all the QR codes and all the great things that we do over here to make sure that everybody keeps fishing. And then the buzz right now with all our followers is that we're bringing Wayne Coda on the show on Friday, which we try to do every year right before Rockfish Opener starts. And it's super critical this year because once again, they're playing that game where they make you think they gave you something when they took something away, and they got everybody bamboozled and baffled. And now our vermilion rockfish went from a limit of, listen to this. This is what really is crazy. In the last 8 years, it's gone from 10, you were allowed 10, to 5, to 4, to 2. Just like that. Bam, 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 bam. And everybody's like, yeah, we got to get involved. We got to stay close to ccacalifornia.org. You got to stay involved. You got to be aware of what's going on, gang. It's super important. And I also want to thank my good buddy Dave Burris for being on the show yesterday. And don't forget tonight, big, giant, grand opening of the Bass Pro Shops in Irvine, California. That is going to be incredible on the other side of the orange curtain, on the side that supports fishing, on the side that supports going outside, and the side that supports suntans. And it's going to be pretty wild, grand opening up there at the Bass Pro Shops. And Promar will be there with Justin and Wilberto and Brian and a few other pro staffers will all be at the Bass Pro Shops grand opening at 6 o'clock. Yep, it's crazy. I see hundreds of millions of them, Brett. Hundreds of millions of them. They're everywhere. There's so many vermilion rockfish now that we're seeing them on the spots. And Bill Varney will talk about it. It's, now that they're not letting us have but 2, you're probably going to start catching vermilion rockfish in the surf. And I bet you they do that already up Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. But we'll get with Bill in just a second here. Okuma, thank you very much. We got a few things to show you today. Fish Labs, the hat I have on, that's a company owned by Akuma. They make the slow pitch Carnata jigs. We'll talk about that a little later in the show. That's what they seem to be getting that big bluefin on. But gang, we got so much to talk about. I just want to get Bill Varney in here right now and get this thing rolling because I had so many text messages last night about this grunion run and what's going on. But hey, Bill, can you come in on it now? You ready? Let's do this.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Bring me in. Good to see you, Dave. Good to see everybody. Happy Wednesday.
So what's going on, Bill, in the surf? I'm hearing a lot of really good things. I've heard there's even been some stripers caught. But what is going on with the conditions? What do you think with this big storm we got coming again this weekend?
Exactly. You know, first of all, I just want to say something about the vermilion rockfish. Some people might have seen my post yesterday about them. Vermilion rockfish are my favorite rockfish to eat. So when we went from 10 vermilion rockfish to 2 vermilion rockfish, it really hurt my heart, I'll tell you. And I'm going to tell you a short little story here about Wayne Koto, CCA's master of ceremonies, and myself. So we were up. It was either 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember exactly. We were up at Morro Bay, and we were doing a surf fishing clinic up there. And the day before the clinic, Harold Davis of Davis Boats invited us to go out rockfish fishing. He took us out there. Now he makes his own lures for rubber lures for rock fishing. I am not kidding. His lures look like a cat turd. Like, I think he took a cat turd out of the yard and made a mold out of it and poured these. So he had these, I mean, they were the ugliest. I could not believe they were going to work. So we go out there. It's him, his buddy, Wayne, and me. We go out there. We are in probably 60 feet of water, I would say. In less than 1 hour, we caught 37 vermilion, and they averaged 6 to 8 pounds. It was ridiculous. Them and God, I can't remember the other one. Where there were so many of them. And that was back just a few years ago when we could get 10. And of course, now, they say, oh, we're going to 2. Now, a year ago, I was on the Shogun on an 8-day trip, and we were making our way back up the coast. And we were like right around like Sacramento Reef, kind of in that zone above Turtle Bay, a little bit above Cedros Island there. And we had like this bonita bite going and barracuda, and we had calico bass and these big halibut, probably got 25 plus pound halibut. And we're floating this one spot by this point, and we kind of get around the point. It was like 35 feet of water. The vermilion were so thick that the captain made everybody reel up, and we had to move to a different spot. They were in 35 feet of water, and we probably had 60 of them in maybe 5 minutes. Now, you too, Dave, I've been up and down the Baja Peninsula on a private yacht 5 times. I have fished almost every beach from, Long Beach to La Paz, and the number of rocks with whitefish and vermilion on them along the Baja coast is literally mind-boggling. There's so many of them down there. So I'm not sure what they're doing. I read on Facebook Wayne's interpretation of the reason for getting these numbers way down, which is typical of them. They do a sampling is how they do their science. They go to a specific area, they sample there, they say, okay, it's a mile by a mile square. We sampled there. And then based on what we sampled, we extrapolate over the rest of the ocean how many fish are left. So that's the method that they use. It's totally unscientific, and that's why we're in the boat that we're in.
I'll give you my take on it. It has nothing to do with fish.
Well, it could be. That could be.
It's all about control, baby. They want us to stop fishing, and this is the best way to do it. Make it so that it's not even financially feasible for you to go fish for red vermilion rockfish now if you can only have 2.
Right.
That's one spot. You drop, let's just say I'm running a sport boat and I got 30 people. I go to a spot I know. We all drop down. Everybody catches their 2 on the first drop. Now what do we do the rest of the day?
That's right.
And the way that the law just changed on August 16th, if I did that in the morning like we normally did because the wind blows in the afternoon, you went vermilion fishing in the morning, I can't go fish for anything else the rest of the day. Because if I get caught with those redfish on my boat, I'm going to go to a federal penitentiary. But I can go to Target and steal $900 worth of stuff and not even get a ticket. That's pretty rad. What a bitchin' deal. That's so cool. That is so cool.
The whole thing is upside down and crazy. I fortunately, I've got a couple of friends who work for NOAA and for the Fish and Game Commission Department of Fish and Wildlife that I've met over the years, and that, you know, they feed me information. One of them called me last week. He said, Bill, you can't believe it. We just received $24 million to study salmon in California. And I said, wow, you know, that's great news. We've had these issues with the salmon. I think it's a management and a water issue, but it's good that, you know, we've got, obviously the federal government is interested in looking into it. And he said, well, no, there's a problem with it. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, all of the 24 million came from the Inflation Reduction Act. Instead of it being used on bridges and roads and airports to make sure that you're safe, and parks for your neighborhood, it was siphoned off, and we're using it for salmon after they told us it was going to be used to reduce our inflation. So it's hard to believe anything they say nowadays.
Absolutely. Forget all this political crap. Let's talk about surf fishing for a little while. So what do you think now? Conditions. We got conditions happening.
We do. We have a really interesting mix. Of course, we've had this mix for a little while, but just in the short term, let's take a look at it in the short term, what's going to go on. So today and tomorrow, we're going to have some, in the surf fishing world, we're going to have some calm winds in the morning. So today is Wednesday. We're going to have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning. We're going to have calm winds in the morning. It looks like we're going to have a pretty big blow in the afternoons, especially tomorrow afternoon. It looks like we might go from a light morning breeze to maybe 30 knots in the afternoon. And that's as this new storm comes down the coast from the Aleutians and out toward Hawaii and makes its way down to the coast into California. As that gets into position, we're going to have a compression from that low pressure, which generally drives the surf fish crazy. And we're going to have, you know, today, tomorrow, and the next day of these morning bites that should be good. And then over the weekend, you know, all the way through really Monday, looks like we're going to have maybe a couple inches of rain. How much wind is going to be associated with that? I don't know if we really know what that's going to be yet. Then when we get down to like Tuesday and Wednesday, it should be calm in the morning again. Then we're looking for another storm to come in Thursday, and then another storm to come in the following Sunday. So what's happening with these storms is that they're rolling down from the Aleutian Islands, and instead of just going down the Washington, Oregon, California coast and then coming inland, which is what we normally see in a winter, they are actually coming straight down on the Aleutians toward Hawaii. They get to maybe halfway between Alaska and Hawaii, and then they get in the jet stream, and that brings them directly out of the west, which does a couple things. One is it creates a lot more moisture in them and changes the orographic lift. So as they come into rather than coming and hitting the mountains in California at an angle, they're coming straight into the mountains of California, whether it's up in the Sierras or down in the local mountains. And that creates this tremendous orographic lift, this warm air that rises out of the valley and makes it rain a lot more. So we're going to see that. And then the other thing is that it reduces the cold water from being pushed down from the north into Southern California. So we continue to see this warm water. And then it looks like around the 6th of April and the 8th of April, there are two giant storms right now down really halfway between South Africa and Australia that are going to be winding up. They're going to be sending south swells this way. And that's what continues to bring this warm water from the south toward the north. A really good example of that is if you look at the camera at the Huntington Beach Pier, it's hbcams.com, HB as in Huntington Beach, hbcams.com. If you look at that every morning, you'll notice that most of the surfers are surfing on the south side or the left side of the pier. When we see that this time of year, that means that there's a mixture of these northwest swells and south swells. Normally they would all be on the north side of the pier and be catching those northwest swells. So we continue to see this warm water come up from the south. We're going to continue to have some great fishing. In between, there's going to be this rain over the weekend. I would probably stay away from the beach, and this wind issue that's going to go on kind of at the same time. And then it's going to clear out next week, and in between storms, you should get some really good surf fishing.
Well, that's phenomenal news, because it's going to be tough for us boaters to be out there on the water, especially like you said, starting tomorrow afternoon. And gang, don't get caught like what Bill was saying. it's going to catch you by surprise if you don't know how to read weather and you don't have the Windy app, which I don't even know why. If you have a boat, you wouldn't. But if you get up in the morning and you look and it's going to be not windy, you're going to get out there, and by 10, I was looking while you were talking, I was looking at Windy. It's a mess starting tomorrow afternoon, and it's a mess all weekend long. And then I know everything changes all the time, but if you look all next week, it's just a mess, a mess, a mess. And I talked about this on our Zoom meeting the other night. I think the biggest deal is we are in a real full-blown, real 1983 type of El Nino, where you saw the devastation that happened this winter at the piers and the beaches, and now they have to dredge all these beaches because all the sand's gone, which they haven't seen gone for so long. But we have so much warm water down here that all that energy up there in the Aleutian Islands is getting sucked down here to try to cool the water out. It's way too hot already. And so Mother Nature's trying to cool it off. But what's happening is, as it comes down, it's like a magnet, like Bill was saying, and it's sucking that warm water up the coast. It's just making the biggest, craziest thing that you and I haven't seen anything like this. And it keeps reminding me of 83, where we didn't have like bitchin' apps like this where we could look at stuff. We didn't even have cell phones back there. So you called each other and you said, Bill, what was it like on the beach today? And you'd go, oh, it was like this. What was it like on the boat? I go, oh, it was like this. We had manta rays jumping around the boat at Catalina today, which was crazy in 83. We haven't seen an El Nino like that. And I think this is such a big one this year that it's just going to be insane. But you've been talking about it for the last 5 months that you've been on the show, that we have a real one. I had Chris Dunn on here. He was talking about we have a real one. And all you got to do is look at what Bill's saying, that weather pattern of the weather coming out of the Aleutian Islands. It's not slowing down. It would usually cut off and head into the beach around San Francisco. These things are coming right down and jumping on right to Conception, and then they don't really turn till they get to maybe San Diego, but at least LA, you watch them. They're all making a big turn inland, where they used to turn in San Francisco. Now they're turning in LA.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, a lot of these storms we're seeing in Colorado, for example, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, and so forth. These storms this year are coming out of the south. They're not coming out of the northwest. We normally see them, come down in an angle. So they come inland in Washington or Oregon. They go through Idaho. They slide down through Wyoming. They hit Colorado. They skim past New Mexico, and off they go. And that's why in some places in our country, like for example, this morning I saw some pictures of Banff, and being a big skier, I've skied multiple times in Banff. Hardly any snow at all. And then down here in the southern tier, we got more snow. I mean, here in Colorado, we got more snow, and I know up at Mammoth and stuff, than we can ever deal with. I really wonder how long it's going to take to melt off this year. So the weather pattern has changed. Has it changed because of global warming or whatever, climate change? No, these are normal patterns that the weather goes through. And, if you believe in the Lord like I do, I'm not going to get on my, soapbox here, or Mother Nature or a supreme being of some sort. This is how they regulate our planet. There's times when there's overabundance of moisture in the northern tier of states, and then and a dry period in the southern tier of states, and then we see the southern tier of states get an overabundance of water, and the northern tier of states, which we're seeing right now, get a lack of water. This is how the nature corrects itself, and this is how the whole system works. It's not bad stuff. It's actually good stuff.
No, exactly. It's cyclical, gang. My dad used to talk about it. Old timers talk about it. We talked about it on the show yesterday. The good old days of fishing are right now, because my dad told me stories about 58, 59 57, 58, when the kelp went from the Coronado Islands to San Francisco and you couldn't catch a bass in the summertime. That it's just cyclical, and you need to just relax. Bill and I have been on the planet long enough, and a lot of you watching, that you remember in the 70s, we were out of gasoline, and I can go on and on and on about the fear mongering that they do. And it's all about nothing. It's all about nothing, gang. If you think back, the Grand Canyon used to be full of water. So, you know, what's real? Is the Grand Canyon supposed to be full of water, or is it supposed to be empty? So just relax. It's not global warming. Everything happens for a reason, like Bill said. And like I was saying, the water down here is very warm. Nature's trying to cool it off, but it can't, because we're in a real El Nino. It's all coming up from the equator. It's going to be okay. But what you have to understand, why Bill and I were talking about conditions right now, you are going to have an extremely windy April. Gang, just understand that. And it'll probably be extremely windy in May. Just understand that. Wrap your head around it. And pay attention. It's going to be windy. June, we probably won't have as much June gloom as we've had in the past because of all this wind. But July, August, September, you guys better be ready. You better have your hook sharpened. You better have your line bought. You better be ready, because it's going to be the most incredible fishing you've ever seen. But you all need to relax, because it's whatever's happening right now, it's happening for a reason. It's setting what Bill and I call the table. It's setting the table for one of the most unbelievable fishing seasons we've ever seen. So real quick, you know what time it is, 20 minutes. Gang, if you watch the show, we're going to show you a quick commercial from Akuma here. I want you to see this reel. We talk about it all the time. It's a great reel for doing big game surf fishing. And then we'll get right back to our show and we'll be going. Bill's got a box right there, but look at this.
Hey guys, this is John Bretza, Director of Product Development for Akuma Fishing Tackle. What we have here is an addition to the Tesoro spinning reel line. This is a new 6,000 size that all you've been waiting for. Great reel for all those guys down in the southeast or the northeast that want to go target, big fish on lighter tackle. This 6,000 size holds 290 yards of 30-pound braid or 195 yards of 50-pound braid. It's packed with features. It's all Luma-Lite construction, body, side plate, and rotor. It's got the IPX7 full waterproof body, so if this thing gets submerged, you're gonna have no issues at all with it fishing. As far as drag system, it features a carbonite drag system with a maximum 33 pounds of drag pressure, so a tremendous drag output. So say you're gonna take this and fish a small, medium-sized tarpon, you're gonna have pulling power with this reel. The best feature it has is it has Akuma's new flight drive system. So that's gonna give you a really smooth operation, so it feels good all day long when you're on the water. And one of the things when you're fishing braided line, there's a lot of stress placed on any reel, regardless of brand or manufacturer. The one thing that we equipped this reel to make the Tesoro different is that instead of a stainless steel spool shaft, we used a titanium spool shaft. So this thing's super strong, super durable, but it's also something that's never gonna corrode. This little 6,000 size reel has a dual and reverse, and it's all machine cut gearing, machine cut brass main gear and penny gear. The Tesoro 6000 has a 6.2 to 1 gear ratio, and that has 41.3 inches of line pickup. The entire reel weighs in at only 15.8 ounces. This reel is going to retail for $359. And one thing that's unique about this reel that's different than the larger Tesoros is that when you flip that bail over and you turn the handle, the bail's gonna automatically engage. On the larger sizes, most anglers don't want that feature, but this is more universal for live baiting and casting and jigging, so we put that feature into this 6,000 size. If you wanna find out more information on the new Tesoro 6000, check it out at okumafishingusa.com or go see it at a local retailer near you.
Thank you, John Bretza. And then, gang, you see I'm wearing the Fish Labs hat. I don't wear hats. I think it makes your hair fall out. Everybody I know that wears a hat doesn't have any hair. But I'm wearing the hat today because, yeah, exactly. Because I'm showing off the Fish Lab series Carnata slow pitch jig. These things are just annihilating the bluefin right now. And like we talked about, they're already pre-rigged. They come in the pack already pre-rigged, where other lure manufacturers, when you get it, you have to re-rig that. This is ready. You open the pack, you take it out, you drop it down, you catch a bluefin. It's already got the assist hooks on it. It's got the big side wash hook on it. It's ready to go. These lures are annihilating the bluefin right now. This is the Carnata slow pitch jig. You're going to want to get a handful of these. You want different sizes. The heavier, the better to get down to that bluefin right away. So check out the Carnata slow pitch jig. And this color right now is the sardine color. That's what's working right now. As we get deeper into the El Nino and the red crab show up, we'll go back to those orange ones I was showing you before. But check it out right once again at akumafish.com and check it all out. But Bill, we're talking conditions and we talked about it, but we had quite a few of my members that went grunion hunting last night. Was the second night of the grunion run. Now, they didn't score heavily, but some of your friends did quite well last night, right? Do you have anything to say about why that is? Is there no grunion left? Are they all gone? Is it the end of the world?
I'm afraid, Dave, I can't tell you where the grunion are. I can't tell you my secrets of where the grunion are. I don't see any dollar bills coming up on the screen up there.
Here, I want you to see a video, Bill.
Yes, I'll give you the complete lowdown now on the grunion. First of all, though, I wanted to say hello to one of our friends, Amelia, who is watching us from Italy. And, you know, I have traveled all over the world and I have fished in Ventimiglia, Italy, which you will know, which is kind of right on the border of France, right by Monaco, and some great surf fishing there. So welcome to watching the show. We're glad.
Yeah, thanks for watching. That's a big deal.
That's
but
awesome.
Look at this. This was a picture taken last night, gang. There's no shortage of grunion. If you didn't find them last night, you were on the wrong beach. Look at that again. Look at that. That's what it, for me, typically, that's what it looks like growing up. It did forever. And I knew the right beaches. Salt Creek is phenomenal. The walk up and down the hill sucks, but my goodness, it's a phenomenal place. Doheny Beach. Those are my stomping grounds. Why would I go there? Because it was right next to my house. I went to the beaches that they weren't at, believe me, and I figured it out. Doheny, phenomenal. Salt Creek, phenomenal. But Bill, you got some great pictures here from your guys last night. Here's another one. This is what it looks like when they're getting ready to bury themselves in the sand. And then you got a couple of grunion holes right here. Those are caused by the grunion, like you were talking about last week. The most amazing animal on the planet Earth, right? So
absolutely,
look at these pictures, gang. This
and
little fish lives out of the water. So talk about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, these are some great pictures. So let's just back up just a tiny bit. You know, I've been working with NOAA and the Department of Fish and the Fish and Game Commission, rather, who's the decision maker on grunion for the last 3 years. Fortunately, I have some people I know inside of those organizations who let me know in advance that the grunion issue was going to come up. And they came out and they told me, Bill, you got to do something about this. They want to take the take down to 1 or 0. And I said, you know, nobody's even going to go down there for 1. So, you know, that's something that we talked to them, CCA talked to them, which I'm a member of and a board member. And they came to the conclusion that they would do something fair. So you can collect 30 of them, which is not very many of them. And their main reason for not allowing us to get grunion is because they feel that the grunion biomass is less. And so what did they base that information on? Did they call me and ask me? No. They based the information on a group called Grunion Greeters. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them. They came about in around 1990, I think is kind of when they started. And these are like citizen scientists who go down to the beach with their clipboard. And when the grunion are running, they would write down, you know, there was a big run, there was a medium run, there was no run. This is where it was. Well, based on this club's information, that's what they use for science. That is all false. Every single bit of it is not true. So the grunion started running 2 nights ago, 2 to 3 nights ago. 2 nights ago, my buddies and last night found them at Venice Beach, at Sunset Beach in Huntington Beach, right on the border of Bolsa Chica. and then also somewhere in San Diego, which I haven't been able to wring it out of them yet of exactly where it was. But my best guess would be somewhere around Carpinteria. Around Carlsbad rather, would be where they are. Of course, they're always going to look for soft sand areas. That's how they have the ability to come in at high tide and dig themselves in there. So there were very good runs. The run in, well, they were all massive, but the run in particular in Venice was unbelievably massive. I mean, it went on for hundreds and hundreds of yards. It was at least, I would say, 200 feet in width and maybe 300 yards long at a minimum. And you're looking at hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of grunions coming in at the same time. So very good grunion runs. The thing you have to wrestle with on all these beaches. So if you're looking at beaches in Orange County, Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, Sunset Beach, or you're looking at Redondo, Manhattan, Dockweiler, Santa Monica, Venice, Delray, all of those beaches have a de facto closure at 10 p.m. From 10 p.m. till like 6 a.m., they all have signs. It's against the law to be on the beach. So how do you go look at grunion in the middle of the night? So we still go down there. Occasionally we get kicked out by the sheriff. And how we get caught by the sheriff, we like wear all black, we put a little grease on our face. We were like hiding out behind the lifeguard tower. The guy like pulls up in like 5 minutes. He's like, how did you see us? Oh, we have night vision goggles. So we can't even, he told me they're going to heat sensing next. So we can't even hide anymore down there. They can see us with the night vision goggles. But they have really been coming inshore. There's a lot of places we don't know. Remember, they come inshore everywhere from really Morro Bay, all the way down to probably about Turtle Bay zone, kind of in that zone. So halfway down Baja, and they're all along those beaches. There's literally millions and millions of them. So they've had some really good runs. I would suggest if you want to see them or collect some, go down there. You can only use your hands to collect them with. You have to have a license if you're 16 or over to get them. But as you can see in the picture here, there's literally thick as can be. And with your hands, you can pick up 30 in 2 or 3 minutes. Very short period of time. So the secret to surf fishing about the grunion is, yes, it's good to collect some grunion. Yes, you can use them for bait. You can use them the next day and have them fresh dead, just keep them cool or in your refrigerator, ice chest. You can put them out on a paper plate and make sure they're straight as possible and freeze them in the freezer for future use. All of those things work great with grunion. But what's most important with grunion when you're fishing for big perch and halibut in particular is finding out where the grunion came in. They don't, if you're looking at the South Bay from Palos Verdes all the way to Topanga Canyon, they could have come in anywhere along there. So how do you know that? Well, number one, a good way to know that is to go down on the beach yourself and look for them. All 3 of my buddies who saw them yesterday, last night, and the night before, all saw that come ashore right around 11 p.m. They weren't like 3 in the morning. So they're a little bit earlier. Another thing, before I get into how to find them, or where they came in, is that the numbers of them are really large for this time in the season. This is really early. This is when they begin their spawn. So this is really early for them to come in these gigantic numbers. Normally we see them come in these big numbers in like June or early July, and then it will peter out as you get into August. And I believe, unscientific, but I believe the reason that we're seeing these really big numbers right now is because of the water temperature. Now, fish are not like us. They don't have phones from China. They don't have cable TV in their holes. And they really go by what goes on in nature. So when the water temperature is the natural temperature it would normally be this time of year, a smaller number are going to come to shore because they're waiting as that water temperature gets warmer. They realize it's time, their biological clock goes off, and it's time for them to come into shore and to spawn. Because the water is warmer earlier in the year this year, they're thinking it's June right now, and that's why they're coming in these big numbers. So the first way we find them is we go down to the beach our beach we like to go fishing at, and we get there at 11 o'clock at night, and we take a walk along the beach and try to find them. Once we find them, we line that up with something that's permanent, that's behind us, and we come back there the next day, especially at a low coming to a high tide, and we fish that area for halibut. Also, these minus tide periods are a really good time to get out as far as you can and cover area you can't normally cover. So that's number one. Number two is get to know the lifeguards. I was a lifeguard for 8 years. Most of them are very nice. The lifeguards, the guys driving the trucks in particular, because the people that are driving the trucks are the supervisors. They're the ones who are on the beach every day. Stop by and say hi to them and say, hey, do you have any idea where the grunion came in last night? 8 out of 10 times they're going to say, yeah, Shirley told us it came in at Tower 22. Boom, you know, to go down to Tower 22 and fish there. And then the last way to find them is walk the day after. So today's a good example. Yesterday would have been a good example. Tomorrow's a good example. Walk the day afterwards at the high tide mark. Remember, they're going to spawn at the very highest high tide mark and look for holes. So if you could throw up that picture by chance of the holes, this is what you're going to be looking for when you're walking along the beach right at the high tide mark. When you see groups of these holes like this, they're about the size of a dime roughly, and they're usually not like a perfect hole that is created by a bubble. It's a hole that's created by the fish digging in there. That's where you know that the grunion came in. Once you know where they come in, you know that halibut and sea bass and big perch will follow them in. And from yesterday to maybe up to a week or a week and a half from now, those spots are still going to be excellent places to fish for halibut and big perch and sea bass, because that's where they came in. Some of them have died and they're still rolling around in the surf in that area. And, you know, this is one thing that a lot of people don't realize about grunion, is that when you look at schools of sardine and school of anchovy, and specifically if you see these videos of marlin going through them or tuna going through them, they'll make these giant bait balls and they'll roll in these big bait balls. And as predation continues, in other words, other animals eating them, they will continue to get in a tighter and a tighter bowl, and eventually, of course, the bowl disappears. I think most of them get eaten. That is exactly the same thing. Predation is what happens to the grunion. They've got fish coming up from beneath them, like halibut and croaker eating them. They've got birds diving on them. So if you go down to the beach, what will happen is, today's a really good example. Today'd be a great day to go down there and look for them. They will stage along the coast until the tide and the moon is just right, and that's where they'll come ashore. But instead of being in these big concentric balls, they will be in long lines that will be anywhere from 3 to 8 lines long out into the ocean, where they're probably about 4 feet wide of fish and maybe 100 feet long. And then 5 feet behind that will be another line of them, and 10 feet behind that will be another line of them. If you go down to Huntington Beach today, you go down to Warner and PCH, and you walk out on the sand, if you pay attention and you look down the beach toward Huntington Harbor or in the other direction toward Newport Beach, you will see a dark shadow in the water outside the surf line. And there'll be maybe 1 to, like I said, 7 of them in a row. And those are the grunion out there. They're out there staging, and they'll move up and down the coast. Like, for example, there's been days where I've seen them at the near the pier in Huntington Beach. And then 3 or 4 miles down the beach at Sunset Beach by maybe 3 in the afternoon. And then at 11 o'clock that night, they came in right in the middle of Bolsa Chica. So if you go down to the beach, you can actually see them. And normally what will really clue you off to them, Dave, is you'll see pelicans and all kinds of seabirds diving on them offshore. And it kind of looks like a cloud going over and creating a shadow out there, but that's actually all of the fish. So it's really important to figure out where the grunion came in, and that's the spot that you want to fish.
See, Jeanette asked a question right there. You want to answer that for a minute, and then I'll talk about grunion?
Yeah, why don't you read it to me? I don't see which one it is.
Okay, I was told halibut are opportunistic. They would rather lay there and wait for the food to come to them than exert energy. They're ambush hunters. Is this correct?
She is absolutely correct. They are, without question, maybe other than lizardfish, probably the laziest fish in the ocean. And the thing is that the reason that they're lazy is probably a biological reason, and that's because it's a flat fish. So if that flat fish is laying down in the bottom and it covers itself with sand, they take all of the fins around their little body and they lay down in the sand, and they use those fins on the side to kick sand up over their body. So all that's left is their eyes really sticking out, and that way there can be ambush killers. But the thing is because of their shape, if there's a strong current, like it's getting toward high tide, it's in the middle of a tide change and the water's moving, or they're in a canal area, like for example, Bologna Creek, Bolsa Chica wetlands, Santa Ana River, anywhere along those areas where there's a big water movement at low and high tide going in and out, they will not feed during those periods of time. They will always feed at peak high tide and peak low tide. So let's say, for example, that high tide is at noon today. From 11:30 to 12:30, they're going to be feeding during that period of time, because if they come out of the sand, they're not being caught by a current like a kite and being taken away. Other fish, all the other surf fish, they're shaped like this and they can swim right through that current. That's not the case with halibut. They'll be on their side and they'll be carried away. And because they're very lazy, they don't want to have to go back to that spot near structure somewhere, use their fins to cover themselves with sand. So she's exactly right. They're opportunistic feeders, and they love to feed during peak low tide and peak high tide periods where there's very little water movement.
Absolutely. And grunion are by far the best bait I've ever used for any kind of fishing. Better than squid, better than anchovies, better than any of the fin bait you buy at the bait docks. For years and years and years and years. I started using them for bait when I was 17, and my kids grew up fishing with them, and my wife's Kelly girl grew up fishing with them. It's a phenomenal bait, and Bill said something that has a lot to do with when you're surf fishing, but when you're out on a boat and you're using them, it doesn't matter winter, spring, summer, fall. If they ran this year or last year, if they haven't run for 5 years, the fish go bananas for them. The biggest problem I see, people are fishing way too heavy a weight, way too heavy a line, way too heavy of a hook. We're using like 1/4 or 1/8 of an ounce weight. We're casting them in. If I want to catch calicos on them, I'm casting them into the foam of the boiler rocks, in the foam, and those grunion are dead. And I'm using either a 2/0 or a 4/0 thin wire hook and a very small sinker. The only reason I'm even using a sinker, and a lot of times we can do it fly lining if we don't have a lot of birds, Bill, it's the only reason the sinker's there is to get it down, because the birds are on it. Because it's not a swimming bait, it's dead. So it lays on the surface and the birds are on it. So it's a phenomenal bait. And if you don't know how to fish with it, Bill Varney has a bunch about it in his book. And I also have a bunch about it on my website. And we cover this grunion, because this grunion is a phenomenal fish. And I am super sad that you're only allowed 30 at a time. And I'm super sad that they close the public beaches in the United States of America at a time. That is ridiculous. So what you're telling me is, if I went down to the beach and I planted a Target sign on the beach, Bill, then I could take as many grunion as I want?
What you can do is you can go to Target first, and all the stuff you just stole from Target, which they have to give to you, you can take that and enjoy it on the beach. And if they come and tell you got to get off the beach because it's closed, you can tell them, let me finish playing with the stuff I just stole, which you can't take me to jail on anymore, or even write me a ticket, or even care. You probably just drive by and wave to me as you go by. And yeah, it's absurd. And, that was one of the points I made to the, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I know more about surf fishing and grunion than probably anybody else knows. I spent my entire life there. My father, who was born in 1928 and lived in Hermosa Beach starting in 1928, spent his entire life doing this and teaching me. And so I said to them, I just said, there's just no way that we've got this issue with the grunion whatsoever. And they said, well, based on the evidence we have, we do. So it's hard to fight City Hall, but you have to continue to do so. So I put together a presentation for them, which I made in front of the Department of the Fish and Game Commission. And which I swear they were looking at their phones. They weren't paying attention to me. Right. They really couldn't care less. And I said to them, I said, you guys want to like reduce the number, or maybe they wanted to take it away completely, where you could only observe and you couldn't take one single grunion. And I said, the way that the whole system's set up right now, you already have a de facto closure. The beaches are closed from 10 p.m. to sunrise in most Southern California locations everywhere. That acts as a de facto closure. That's why my buddy who goes on the beach in Venice Beach at 11 p.m. and doesn't see another human being was there all alone, because it's against the law to be there. So they put in this de facto closure, which should have covered their reducing the amount that people are bringing in baloney. I mean, so few people harvest grunion. It's ludicrous. So anyway, there's just really not much we can do about it, but join CCA, support CCA, because Wayne is up there every day for us fighting on stuff like this.
It's ridiculous. And Wes Maxwell, you are hilarious. You are a retired police officer. Why are you asking Dave and Bill where you can park at night by Sunset Beach?
Yes, you can park at night. You know what's funny is so that Sunset Beach area, so that's Huntington Beach, so that's like Anderson Street to Warner Boulevard. If you look it up on your map, that is one of the only areas that I can think of, other than maybe at the Avenues in Newport Beach, that you can park without paying. Everywhere else, the beaches we own, you got to park $15 to pay there. But along that whole strip, it used to be like tons of parking along there. And then, of course, they did all the VRBO baloney to ruin everybody's society. And so you have all those people parking there. And then there's homeless now living in the little park strip that goes along in the middle of there. So you can definitely park there for free. You can definitely park there at night and overnight and stuff. And then you go out onto the sand. That is where I got nailed several times by the sheriff with their night vision goggles and all, but they're all anglers, so they're not going to write you a ticket. They're just going to ask you to leave, and I just wait till they leave and go back. But anyway, right. You can't you can park down there for free, and that is one of the few places you can. And really, that strip really from the Huntington Harbor all the way up to Bolsa Chica has notoriously had grunion there. I'm 65, so I've only been looking at grunion for like 63 years now. I think when I was 2, I was a little too young to realize it was a grunion. But by the time I was 3, I was like running on the beach. Really, over the last 60 years, I've seen them all along there, and of course, in the South Bay.
And then Jason Cutter has a great question, Bill. When you're fishing from the shore with grunion, what setup and what pound test do you use?
Okay, that's a really good question. I'm going to normally use 2 different types of setups. I am going to fish an 8.5 or 9 foot spinning rod. I can also fish a conventional rod if I want to, but I like the spinning rod. It's a little bit easier to handle when you're casting out a grunion. As Dave said, normally going to use like an 1/8 ounce, a 1/4 ounce sliding sinker, unless you're in an area where the surf is bigger and you need something to keep you on the bottom. And then when you have the bait swinging but below that, it's easier with that longer SST salmon trout rod to use that. So what we would call a surf rod nowadays. So I like to use that, and I'll fish them a couple ways. If I'm going to fish someplace, so I might fish inside between Belmont Pier in Long Beach and 72nd Street Jetty in there. Notoriously, unbelievably good halibut fishing in there. Really good right now. I can't believe I haven't seen a report from there in the last couple of weeks. So if I was you, I would get down there. But down there, it's really calm because you're inside the harbor to a large extent. So you can fish a really light sinker and get a really good cast and fish a fairly long leader there, like 3 to 5-foot long leader with that grunion behind it, then I'm going to fish that grunion with a number 1, either a mosquito thin wire hook from Owner or the Gamakatsu 50409. And I am going to hook that thing right through its chin and up through its nose, so its mouth doesn't open and it doesn't spin in a circle as I retrieve it, whether it's fresh dead or whether I take it down there frozen. One of my tricks over the years has been, when I do freeze those baits, I always fish them frozen. I don't let them thaw out and then put them on a hook and cast them out. I always fish them when they're frozen, because when they're stiff like that, it's not only easier to cast them, but their body stays straight. And instead of spinning as they're coming into shore, they come in a much more natural movement. The only exceptions I would make there is if I'm on the open beach or I'm near structure. I'm going to fish 10-pound fluorocarbon leader between my swivel, or basically my sliding sinker is on the Carolina rig, and my hook. And then if I'm fishing like I'm inside the harbor, like Los Alamitos Harbor, Huntington Harbor, Long Beach Harbor, like I said, along by the Belmont Pier there, I'm going to fish 6-pound fluorocarbon, because I'm afraid of the abrasion more than I'm afraid of the teeth on the fish, on the halibut. So you're going to be fine with that 6-pound, even with those teeth. But if you want to be safe, you're going to fish that 10, maybe 12-pound at the most fluorocarbon leader material. And the color to use is pink. Go buy some pink fluorocarbon, either in that 6-pound, which you can use commonly on the beach, or in that 10-pound that you're going to put on when you're halibut fishing.
All right. Great info. And then the way I do it, gang, from a boat is I'm going to use somewhere between 12 and 20 pound, depending on the area that I'm fishing. When I'm fishing boiler rocks, I'm using 20. And then when I'm fishing beaches and stuff for halibut and stuff, I'm using 12 or 15 pound. And the reason I'm using a little bit heavier is because of the surge and the whitewater and the rocks and the mussels and all that crap that's going on in there. But I'm going to hook them a different way. I'm going to hook them when you take that grunion, Bill, and you look right behind their eyes, their skull right there. Mm-hmm. I'm going with the 2-aught thin wire hook through the skull, side to side, to where the ring of the hook, or the eye of the hook, if you will, is going to come right to their nose. That's where that's going to be setting at. And it has a less of a tendency to have it. But I'm not fishing in the surf where it's getting sucked back and forth with the surge like Bill is. So it's a different animal. That's why it's going to have a different rigging. And like we say, Bill says, and I say, every single thing matters. So Bill did it as wrong as he could, and that's how he learned to do it right. I did it as wrong as I could, and that's why what we're trying to help you guys with is what works. Now, you can do it any way you want. It's not going to change what Bill and I eat, but I'm telling you, we did it every way you could wrong, and now we know how to do it the right way. You know, and we're looking at two different aspects. I'm standing on a boat casting towards the beach. It doesn't make any sense. Bill's standing on the beach casting towards where I'm fishing on the boat. But it's a different thing, because where Bill's at, you got the surge coming in and then coming out. So the bait's going to have a tendency to spin if you hook it the way I'm telling. Plus, it's going to get a lot of kelp on it. It's going to get a lot of kelp because it's going to come right down your line and go right onto the eye of the hook and then hook right on their head. And I've seen it a zillion times. So everything matters. You want to fish the way Bill suggested in the surf, and you want to fish the way I suggested. And the pink fluorocarbon, that's Bill's thing. That's Bill's thing. You know me, I'm a clear guy. I'm a clear guy, but Bill has done it every way he could, and pink works, and he feels confident with it, and he's going to tell you what works for Bill. He can't tell you what works for you. He only tells you what works for him. Right, buddy?
That's exactly right, Dave. And you know, the thing is that over the years, you know, I've just made so many friends, so many great people, all you guys watching today and stuff, guys and gals, so many great people. And people love to come up to me and say, I did this, or I tried this, and this worked. I've learned so much from other people who have tried things I haven't done, and then I've incorporated that in my system. And maybe pink works for me. Maybe this certain shape of hook works for me. Maybe this way that I hook my baits works for me. But that doesn't mean that you can't experiment and find something that works best for you. And that's right. What makes fishing great, because there's not just one way of doing things. There's many, many ways of doing it. I've got to say, I can't see all the questions, but there's so many great questions. I can say, it looks like Anthony said, 1/2 to 3/4 ounce in the surf. He is so right. You get out in that open surf, and where I would be fishing in the harbor with 1/8 of an ounce with very little current, almost like fishing in a lake, I go out into the surf, and if there is a surge, if I'm not fishing a heavy enough sinker, my bait's going to be way up here, not where the halibut are biting. I want it way down here on the bottom. So the bigger the swell, the stronger the current, the heavier your sliding sinker. Don't be worried about being really stealth and scaring fish away, because if your bait is not down in the zone where those fish are, you'll never even have a chance of getting a bite rather.
Yep, absolutely. That is the thing. It's a totally different thing from fishing on a boat, from fishing in the surf, and that surf is gnarly, and it's going to affect that and keep that bait from being down on the bottom. I want to show, because we got this video before we run out of time, that Bill's buddy shot. Look at this grunion run. If you looked at those females, they're sticking their heads up out of the sand. They actually dug their little tails down into the sand, their little heads sticking up. And if you watch it again, and I'm going to put it back up there again, you can see what's going on. The female, she is pushing, her little head's moving because she's actually pushing her eggs into the sand. And then if you look, we're going to bring a video back on. If you look, the little boys are wrapped around her, and they're actually putting their milk, or whatever you call it, the milk, the grunion semen into the sand. And that's the only reason they come up on the beach, gang. They're not coming up on the beach to see how you're doing or check you out. They're coming up there to make little baby grunions. That's what they're doing. And if you look at that, that's one, Bill, that's one little piece this big that we're showing. And to try to tell people that there's no grunion on the planet, I mean, that happened last night.
It's criminal.
That happened on 100,000 beaches last night. That same exact scenario. This was last night, gang. This whole thing just doesn't make any sense, gang. But we have enough money to give foreign countries just billions of our dollars, but you and I can't go get 100 grunion tonight.
It is really just amazing because, I have seen grunion, and of course, Captain Al Clowers and I were just talking about this on the other night with you, is that I have seen grunion on every beach south of Morro Bay, and they might be north of there. I never looked. I have seen them at Catalina. I've seen him at the Channel Islands. I've seen him in the very, very back of San Diego Harbor on sandy, muddy beaches there. I mean, I have seen them just about everywhere. Their biomass is very healthy. They're doing very well. And the only thing that humans are doing that's hurting them has nothing to do with anglers picking them up and putting them into buckets, or really the predation of the birds and the fish underneath. It's all about water quality. There were many more of them that came ashore probably prior to the, maybe 60s in the South Bay area than there are now, because of the Hyperion plant and all the sewage that goes into the water in El Segundo. But other than that, they're just about everywhere. They just kind of go around that now. Back in the day, of course, they were all along there. But yeah, that's really the only thing slowing them down. There's just tons of them. And I sincerely wish, and if there's any of the NOAA scientists watching, or the Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission watching, I would love to take you on a tour one night of the grunion. And then I'm going to ask you at the end of the night if you think that there are not many of them. Because there are, there's just so many of them. It's literally millions. It's unbelievable, the numbers. And these are just on the beaches here on the West Coast. They're, who knows where they are in the rest of the world? They always say, they're only in the West Coast. They're only in this little zone. I don't believe that's true either. No.
And if they really actually wanted to do something, and look, you would throw a drone up and drive up and down the beach and look at those big aggregating schools of them that are waiting for it to get dark, and you can take the
Yes.
drone and go up and down the beach, and you can see. Those of us that have done it our whole lives, like you and me, we can go to the beach and we can see which beach is going to have them during the day because we can
I
see
can
them.
point. I can point right to them. You and I
Right.
could go to, me and anybody watching could go to the beach at 2 in the afternoon, and I could take you to the little berm before it goes down to the water, and I can point, and you can see them move up and down, and then the shape of their line, not really schools, but the shape of their groups will change as they get in position to come ashore.
Yeah, and they're getting ready, gang. I don't know about any of you, if any of you have ever spawned, but when you're going to spawn, you're going to figure out a way to spawn, gang. Let's just be honest. You're going to figure out a way to spawn, and that's what they're doing. They're looking up and down the beach, trying to figure out what's the best beach for me to get up on and spawn. And they're smart. They've been doing it their whole lives. They know where to go. They know where the best sand is, but they're looking at all that, and to think that there's no grunion, that you got to remove head from rectum and look out there a little bit. Go outside. Most of these people that set all these rules up have never even gone outside. They're pasty white. They're whiter than the walls in Bill's house, and they're setting these laws. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and it's so sad because it's such a fun thing to do with your children at night. Oh my gosh, it's a fun thing, and it's spring break right now. Take your kids tonight. Go and find a sandy beach and take your children and bring some flashlights and go down there and go look. Even if you don't want to take them, take the kids down and go look. It is an incredible thing to see them all come up on the beach like this, gang. If you haven't ever, I remember Kelly girl had never seen it before. And the first night I took her, she was blown away. She saw it just like that at Doheny, and it looked exactly like that. And I had one of those giant kill bags, and we literally filled the kill bag up. We left it in the back of the truck. We just went with buckets and just filled the kill bag up. And the next night we went there, and there was the same amount. I didn't even affect the population with my 5-gallon bucket and my kill bag. Not even Dave Hansen affected the population. It's so weird. And another thing you were saying I wanted to talk about real quick, Bill's saying you can't affect you're only allowed to pick them up with your hands. So therefore, 99.9999% of fishermen aren't going to go do it because we're too fat, we're too lazy, we don't want to get wet. So we're not even going to go do it because you have to walk and you have to use your hands. You can't use a net. You can't use a trawl. You can't do anything like that. You can't hold the bucket there and let them swim in because they won't. They'll go around it. And you got to use your hands, and you got to get a little bit wet. So we're never going to affect the population, gang, because 99.99% of us aren't going ever. And it's at night. It's at night. It's dark. It's cold. And it's on a beach, and you have to walk. And like Wes Maxwell said, there's nowhere to park. And he's a former police officer, so he knows where to park. So don't tell me that. It make me laugh, Wes. And I almost answered the question without even thinking about who you were. And then I was like, what are you asking me and Bill that question for? We're criminals. We're parking wherever we can park.
Really? We're the bad guys.
We're horrible human beings. We didn't burglarize a Target last night, but we went and got 30. I think I had 31, so I should probably be in a federal penitentiary.
Yeah, what if you're not good at math? I mean, God, to show you how much things have changed, Dave. I mean, God, it makes me feel so old. When I was growing up, living in the South Bay, growing up in Hermosa, Manhattan, Redondo, that zone, in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, like our teachers forced us to meet them at the beach at night in the spring to go look at them. Like we did, our whole class would go down there. Like half of our school would go down, and we wouldn't be collecting any. We'd pick them up and throw them in the water and stuff, but we wouldn't be collecting any of them. And that was like such an important thing in school when you're growing up. They're like, hey, let's go see what's going on naturally in the area around where we live. And let's see these grunion. It's such an unusual thing that these fish, nowhere in the world this has happened, that they come out of the water and they spawn and they can actually get themselves out of the hole and back in the water, and that they live. Let's go down there and see them. So now they're like teaching, young people how to become somebody that they're not. Whereas back in those days, we paid attention to what went on in nature naturally, right? Not the unnatural stuff. There weren't grunion in women's sports in those days. So back in the day, we used to be able to go to the beach. The teachers would take us down there. Then the next day at school was like so cool. We'd sit in class and the teacher would talk about grunion and how grunion worked. I mean, talking about getting hooked on fishing. So those are the things that we need to bring back to our schools, to bring back to young people, and to go back to the city and say, hey, when the grunion are running, can we get rid of this 10 to 6 closure thing and get free parking?
Yeah, exactly. And Wes, I'm just playing with you. You're my buddy. I love you, man, and I appreciate everything you did to keep me safe my whole life. I would hate to live on a planet where I dial 911 and I have to talk to a psychiatrist about the guy that's coming into my house to kill me. But Bill, where would you suggest? Because he's got a legitimate question. He's not driving a black and white anymore. He's driving his pickup truck. He wants to go down there tonight and go do this in Seal Beach. Where would you suggest he parks?
Well, if you go to Seal Beach, you can park right by the pier. I know that during the day they charge. I don't think they charge at night because there would be nobody to enforce it. But that is, Seal Beach is one of the beaches that is open all night. So you can go there. People will go between the breakwater and the pier normally and kind of look in that zone. Of course, both sides of the pier, but they more often than not come in on the south side of the pier there. Sunset Beach in Huntington Beach, you can park there. You can park around Golden West up in the neighborhoods and walk down to the sand from there to check between the pier and where the cliffs are. Often they'll come in at the cliffs there. Another spot you can check, which is a fun place to go, is down at the jetties in Newport Beach, where you can actually just park on the road. It's kind of hard to find parking spots there because there's so many renters in that zone, but that's another area. And then go on down south. What's hard about San Diego is there are a number of good places, but there are a number of places now where there is a rocky shore there that has not been there for like 20 or 30 years because of several summers and winters of El Nino. So you need to be familiar where that is. Really, one of the better zones there would be from about the middle of Carlsbad State Beach, where everybody camps, up toward where the jetties are, where the water comes out from the plant there, from the power AES power plant there. That zone has some really nice sand along there. And in San Diego, that would really be your best bet. And then if I was up in Ventura, I'd be looking between the pier and Ventura Harbor. Also down in Oxnard at Hollywood Beach has always been a really good spot for them. And then last but not least, if I was going up to Santa Barbara, I'd go right out on East Beach. You can park right next to the wharf, just on the left-hand side, the south side of the wharf there. There is some free parking there. And then walk along East Beach to the south down toward the bathhouse. You're going to find them along there.
Wes is saying thank you for all the parking suggestions. So Bill, or excuse me, Jeanette and Justin were saying, what time do you think would be the best tonight? Well, last night it was 10:40 was the estimated run. And me personally, I'm not a grunionologist as much as Bill, but what I found is the next night, it's usually a half an hour, 45 minutes later than the night that you saw him. So if I was down at the beach last night and I got him at 10:30, or I'd be down there at 11 tonight, and I'd be mounted up and I'd have my flat here. This is how I did it, because I'm a fat, lazy guy. I brought at Doheny, I would park at the ship. You can't park in the parking lot at Doheny because they close it at 10. So I'd park at the shipyard. Okay. They don't close the shipyard parking lot, and it's right on the break wall. Then I would set with my high-powered spotlight, and I would set in the car with the music on and a cup of coffee. And every once in a while, when it would say time, like 10 or 11 o'clock, I would just shine my big heavy-duty spotlight down the beach. And then I would, there's some silver. Because the first wave, gang, is not like that picture we showed you. The first wave, when they come up, we call them the scouts. And they come up and they check it out and they make sure that there's not 10 million birds that are going to eat all their buddies. They come back out and they go, okay, coast is, this is what I think. This is just theorizing. But I think they go back out and they go, okay, coast is clear. Let's go. And then they storm the beach like that picture right there. So I would hit with my spotlight. Then if I was at Salt Creek, I would take my beach chair and I would set in my beach chair with my big spotlight. And then I would just shine it up and down the beach and look. And then as soon as I started to see some silver, then I knew it was time to get up, take my bucket and start walking down the beach with my flashlight. But you got to have a waterproof flashlight, because what I do is the minute I start to find them, I throw the flashlight in the bucket and just start filling the bucket up. Now you can't fill up the bucket. 30 of them is going to be the very bottom of a 5-gallon bucket. What a, so sad.
Man,
so sad.
You just nailed it, Dave. Dave, that is exactly what I do. So when they came in, not yesterday, but the day before, they came in at 10:30. My buddy said we saw him at 10:30. Last night, 11 p.m. So as that tide changes a little bit every day, as that goes along, gets a little later or whatever you want to call it, they're going to spawn a little bit later. And then second of all, you're not guessing. You could be like a better scientist than these people they pay at NOAA, man. That's exactly what they do. And bees do the same thing. Many animals do the same thing. They send in the tough guys first, and they're just in a small number, but they come in and they feel the softness of the sand, that it's a good place to land, that there's not too many birds around. Of course, they don't want humans there, but they don't really know that. And then they go back out and they let everybody else know that, hey, and bears do the same thing up in the mountains. The bears do the exact same thing here, that they go and they let all of the other fish in their school know that it's safe to come in. This is the place. And then they come in and they rush the beach like Normandy. So Dave, you're exactly right. That's exactly how they operate. They send in the tough guys first. If everything looks, the coast is clear, the whole group comes in.
And we were yelled at by the older guys back in the day when we were kids, when we would go over to, they'd be like, stop, don't touch them. Those are the scouts. And we'd be like, shut up, old man.
Exactly. You don't want to piss off the scouts.
Now we're the old
but the other thing, Dave, is that you're exactly right. So what's changed from when I was a kid? So like when I was a kid, we would have a Coleman lantern, which you can't really see that far, maybe 10 feet or something with the lantern. And then we'd have these, man, we're old. We'd have these, they're like a nightstick. We'd have these flashlights with like 4 to 6 D batteries in them. They weighed like 22 pounds. And with all that battery in it, you could see like 15 feet. Well, now they have these LEDs. So that's what we use on the beach, these LED flashlights. And they are so strong that you can actually lose your eyesight if you hold one to your eyes. It's amazing. And they run off like 3, AA batteries. So how they work is that you can go down to the water's edge and you can go perpendicular with your light down the beach. And when those guys come in, they're very shiny and they will shine up in that flashlight and you'll know exactly where they are. So if you're really interested in it, invest $20 or $30 or $40, go to Amazon or whatever, where they have these really bright flashlights. And also with these neat new ones, you can make it so it's got a wide beam or a very tight beam. And with that tight beam, you can easily see a 1/4 mile down the beach and cover a big area.
Yeah, and get the kids all a little flashlight, because they all, I'm just trying to help you with your children when you do it. I was the master at taking the neighborhood kids and the kids. You guys all heard my Grunion story during story time. But give all the kids a little flashlight. They want a flashlight. They want to participate. You're going to take them. Don't make it boring. Let them enjoy it. But you can't bring your phones or your iPads on the beach, because then that's that. It's gone. But let them have their own little flashlight. Let them look around. Let them be a part of this whole thing. It makes it so much fun. And I'll tell you what, when you finally find these Grunion and you finally see what Bill and I are talking about, you're going to be addicted. It is the craziest thing you've ever seen, and it'll be hard for you if you've never seen it before. when you go back and you think about it, it's going to be hard for you to explain it to anybody that hasn't seen it before, because it is so spectacular. You look, when you finally stop and look up and down the beach, when you're in the middle of grabbing them, Bill, and you go, oh my gosh, and you look up and down the beach, and the whole beach, as far as you can see, is solid zillions of these little fish that are just, it's so sad to think that they're regulating it, because it's not even a thing to regulate. It's all about control. If you want to be perfectly honest, it's got nothing to do with the little fish. It's got nothing to do with the population of the little fish. It's got nothing to do with nothing. It's got to do with control. Period. End of story. You can steal, rob, rape, kill, but you cannot take 30 grunion. It's just ridiculous. I don't get it.
If you want people to love the environment, respect the environment, take care of the environment, be a lover of living things, you need to introduce them to those things. The more people that you take down to see the grunion, whether they're anglers or not anglers, or just somebody who's maybe never even been to the beach before and experiences that for the first time, it builds value for them to believe in the importance of keeping our environment safe and clean and open to the public and all of those things. When you exclude people from having the ability to experience the thing that they're supposedly trying to save, you're going to lose most of the people. So we really need to do our best now to get more people down there to enjoy them, whether they're going to collect them or just watch them. I'm telling you, you take a person who's never been down there to see, and not only is that amazing, but with kids and adults and all kinds of folks, when they're standing in the surf and there are thousands, they're ankle deep, and there are thousands of those grunion around them, and they're tickling their ankles. There is no feeling, Dave, like that you have ever had or ever experienced. And they will remember that for the rest of their lives. It's really a special moment. These are really incredible animals. And rather than sequestering them off and not allowing anybody to touch them or see them, it's really something that we should embrace and enjoy.
Yes, absolutely. And you got to take the kids and go look, or grandkids or whatever. And those of us that are a little bit up in our age, like myself, bring your beach chair, make yourself comfortable, go enjoy yourself on the beach. But look, also don't kill yourself. If you haven't seen them, let's say it starts at 10 tonight. We know it doesn't. It starts at 11 o'clock. Get down there at 11, get down there at 10:45, because it could happen early. Set up your beach chair, sit down, relax, and enjoy yourself. Let the kids run around and enjoy the beach. And it's okay to get wet. It's okay to get wet and get sand in your car, because tomorrow it'll all be dry and you can vacuum it right out. Just relax and enjoy the world and go outside and have fun. And maybe if we all just started doing stuff, I would love to be at the beach one day when the guy shows up to write the ticket and there's 30 of us there and we all got 31 of them. And I would love to see him write those 30 tickets for 31 grunion. I want it. And then we all go to court together. How fun would that be? That would be a blast. But little kids getting tickets, everybody, we all show up, and there's a guy there that just ripped off Target for like $2.5 million worth of product. And he's getting they're giving him a brand new car and a cell phone and giving him a house to live in. And then me and all my little friends and all my little buddies and all my kids, we're all getting a ticket. What a bitchin' world we're living in right now. How rad is that? That is so rad. You know what I was going to say about the houses down there in Newport? There's not too many renters now. The squatters are taking them all over, and they don't have cars, so there'll be plenty of parking down there.
Because squatters don't have cars.
Right. They don't have cars. They just own mansions.
They take the bus
to their mansion on the beach. It's okay.
To Lido Island.
And they get 31 grunion. But Justin was asking about the Alamitos area, Alamitos Bay area, the breakwall or the Alamitos Pier or something. I don't even remember what he asked. Something about, is there grunion there? Justin, you're going to the Bass Pro Shops tonight? Go down to Doheny. Go down to Doheny. That's the best beach. I know Doheny's working. I know that. I don't know anything about that area Bill's talking about up there. If you're down to your boat, Just go down to the beach with the kids and let them run around and look.
Can't hurt.
It's not going to hurt them. It's going to be fun. Check it out, gang. Let us know if you find grunion. Let me and Bill know if you find them. Text us. Bill, how can they get your calendar? How can they get a hold of you? They want to get your book and all that cool stuff. Let's run that over. I mean, we've already gone an hour and 20 minutes. You and I can talk.
I could talk about this stuff for days. They can always come to my site, fishthesurf.com. That's my educational site, and learn about, the equipment we use, the rigging that we use, what type of surf fish there are, how to find fish on the beach, all that type of information. You can get my book. It's at most tackle shops. It's also at surffishtackle.com. That's where I have all of the different stuff I use on the beach every day, all super reasonably priced and just exactly what works down there on the beach. That stuff's great. A great announcement today is on July 27th, Saturday, July 27th. We're having an on the beach clinic at Bolsa Chica State Beach. That will come up on my site under the seminars page. The signups for that will probably begin around the middle of April, May 1st at the latest for that. And we'll try to accommodate as many folks as we can, but not too many. So please sign up for that as soon as possible. We ask for a donation to CCA when you sign up, but if you can't make a donation, you're perfectly welcome to come also. We'd love to help everybody learn how to surf fish. We're going to have one in Morro Bay, which will be the second weekend, the 12th of October. Looking forward to getting a little bit more details about that in the next couple of weeks. So that's how to get a hold of me. And then just last but not least, Dave, I think next week, if I can remember, we're going to talk about worms. Lots of worms, but we're going to talk about the worms that you find on the beach. And the reason we're going to talk about that is not only are they free, not only are they good surf fishing bait, but these worms, they feed on the grunion eggs. Because they feed on the grunion eggs, not only does it make them a crazy color, but it makes them really fat. And this time of year, between now and really kind of the middle of June, you can dig them up down there at the beach, and they are fantastic bait to use in the surf. And they really grow a lot this time of year by eating those eggs from the grunion.
And you guys are going to be blown away when Bill tells you about it. And then you're down there digging for these worms, and you're just coming into these giant piles of grunion eggs. They're all over the beach you're walking on. You don't even know it. They're a foot underneath where you're walking, zillions of grunion eggs. And if you were to ever look at that and go, there's no shortage of grunion. I mean, each one of those grunion you saw in that video are just dumping zillions of eggs on the beach, gang. And then in a couple of weeks, they turn into little grunions. And then, well, we can just go on and on and on. We can go on and on. Guys, quit voting for party. It's time to start voting for action. You got to quit voting party. You have to. I know Orange Man bad, but you got to quit voting for party. It doesn't work. If you can see what the hell's going on right now, it does not work. You don't tell me you know who I voted for. Don't tell me Quit voting party, start voting action. It's not working. I hope you can see that. There's one side that wants to end all this. There's one side that decided 30 was the number. There's one side. That other side didn't decide 30 was the number. That other side didn't decide that you can only have 2 reds. That other side didn't decide that we needed to close a third of the California coastline. That other side didn't decide 30 by 30. I'm just saying, I'm sick and tired of it. We're coming to a point now where we're coming to a boiling point, gang. It's coming. I don't know if you can see what's going on, but it is unbelievable. But Kelly and we're about to get our citizenship down here, Bill. So we're going to come up and get some of that free stuff. We didn't think it was important to get our citizenship, but now, for goodness sakes, I want free stuff. We're coming.
The border's open. The border's open. Come on up. We
can go back and forth anytime we want. We want the free stuff. We want the free stuff. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm Kelly's on what is it called? Craigslist right now, looking for the mansion we're going to go squat in. She's getting our mail sent there right now, so we're excited. This is a cool place we're living. This is a good time to get we're looking for new places to live where we can just go hang out. All we need to do is get our mail delivered there, and it becomes our house. Oh, bitchin'! I'm excited, and I'm coming to get 31 grunion.
Well, you want to hear the irony about it, Dave? Here's what's so ironic about the whole thing. So yesterday I was looking at a hotel room for in the middle of July across the street from the landing of Fisherman's Landing, a hotel I've stayed at many times. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember its name, so I wanted to get the right one. The last time I stayed there was $132 a night. Okay, this is like one step up from a flea bag motel. It's right across the street from Fisherman's Landing. If you want to stay there in July, you can either go into a mansion and take over the mansion for free. Probably the lights are turned on. There's plenty of water. You can go in the pool and all that. Or you can stay across the street in a little tiny room for $415 a night. A night. That's how much hotels are costing now in the summer in San Diego. It's absolutely out of control. I can't believe it. Huntington Beach, I was looking at Huntington Beach, it's staying at the Hilton, which is by the pier. Without tax, it was $670 a night.
Wow.
So this whole freeloader thing has sounded better to me all the time.
Absolutely. It sounds phenomenal. I like it. I like it. All right, gang. Well, we probably lost half our audience, but it happened. Hey, I want to thank you all for watching us today. Bill, it's always a pleasure. Wednesdays are just a plethora of information. So many people absolutely think this is, besides Thursdays with Kelly Girl, this is their favorite day. They love Wednesdays with Bill. So thank you for being a part of this show. I really appreciate it. All of you that watch, just understand there's a ton of humor here. Relax. Take it easy. It's okay to laugh at yourself when you're giving away every dime you have to people that didn't put any money in the system. It's okay. Just laugh. It's okay. Have a great day. Turn off the news. They're all lying. This is the only place you get truth. And Wes, be very